This brain and spinal cord start out in an amazing way. Let's talk about the creation of a new human being. A new human being is formed by the union of a tiny little female egg cell. This thing is about the size of a dot made by a fine pointed pencil. So small you can barely see it with the naked eye, and it's not even a complete cell. It's missing half its chromosomes. It meets up with a male sperm cell that's even tinier. Maybe a little smarter. Okay. So it's smaller. It too is missing half its chromosomes. So we have two half cells that unite and form one perfect cell. Now this one cell gets a little bigger and it divides into two. And then it divides again and becomes 4, 8, 16, 30, just keeps multiplying. After about 8 weeks, when this blob of cells looks something like a little mulberry, an amazing thing happens. See, they all started out as one single cell. They should all be the same. After about 8 weeks, some of the cells begin to change and form an organ. Guess what the first organ is? It's not the heart, it's not the skeleton. See, if I were drawing a human body, I'd probably start with the skeleton. You can see what kind of an artist I am. I'd start with the skeleton and fit in the bits and pieces wherever there's room. Nature doesn't do that. Nature says the first thing we'll set up is a control system. The first organ to form is the brain and spinal cord. Then after it has formed, before any organs show up, branches develop. Major nerve trunks from the brain and spinal cord. Those divide and redivide and subdivide and spread out in a network all over the body. After there are nerves, then organs can develop. So you get up in the throat, the thyroid gland, and over the kidney, the adrenal gland that makes adrenaline and makes cortisone. I'm fascinated by this thought. Our medical friends seem to believe that cortisone is an effective treatment for all forms of arthritis and joint inflammation. If arthritis can be successfully treated with cortisone, you think it may be possible that at least some cases of arthritis are caused by a lack of cortisone? Maybe if you were making the right amount of cortisone, you wouldn't have the arthritis in the first place. I mean, don't go to a chiropractor after 40 years of arthritis and expect to get adjusted twice and the arthritis will go away. But it's just possible there's a relationship between the function of that gland and whether you will get arthritis or not in later life. The thyroid gland, as we said, controls all of your metabolism. The ovaries make female hormone. Boy, too much of that stuff is a known cause of breast cancer. You better have just the right amount. You better have just the right amount of every chemical produced by every gland in the body. But before the glands can even exist, they have to have a nerve supply. The thing to remember is that's how everything works. You don't first get glands and then a nerve supply to make them work. If you wanted to grow apples, what are you going to do? Get a bunch of apples and throw them up in the air and plant a tree that'll catch the apples when they come down? No. First you plant the tree. It grows a trunk, the trunk gets branches and smaller branches, and the fruit grows at the ends of the branches. That's how the body works. The glands don't exist until first they have a master control system. This brain and spinal cord are the most important organ in the entire body. You might as well know, one, they are the first organ ever to develop. Two, it's an organ which seems to have to last you the rest of your life. See, an organ like the liver is very important, but you could destroy 2/3 of the liver and the body will grow it back. You can't do that with the brain and spinal cord. So chiropractors say, you know, it may be a good idea to take care of the brain and spinal cord. They seem to be rather important. Not only do they control everything and regulate your body chemistry, did you ever wonder what is the difference between a living, breathing, walking, talking human being and a corpse? See, physically they're the same. The difference between a living person is electrical energy. In fact, you are now legally pronounced dead when all electrical activity in the brain has ceased. As long as your brain is producing electricity, you're alive. That's the difference between life and death. This electrical energy travels through all parts of the body over nerves. In the University of Pennsylvania, many years ago, an experiment was done in which they hooked up an electroencephalogram, a thing that measures brain energy. They hooked it up to a living rabbit, and they measured the electricity in the rabbit's brain. Then they went a step further. They harnessed that electricity and used it to run a radio. The radio had no batteries. It wasn't plugged in anywhere. Its only power source was the electrical energy from the rabbit's brain. And the radio worked. But because it was drawing the life energy from the rabbit died. And then the radio stopped. So they plugged in another volunteer rabbit, and the radio worked again. Your body is like that radio. All of the parts of your body need electrical energy to function. They only get it from one place, and that is the brain. Not only do chiropractors believe that the brain and spinal cord are the most important organ of the body, apparently nature believes the same thing too. Nature has surrounded the brain and spinal cord with solid bone. Now up in the head, you've got the skull, or rather surrounding the brain, you've got the skull, the cranial vault, and that protects the brain. What about down here? Well, nature says this spinal cord is just as important as the rest of the central nervous system. It too is surrounded by solid bone. See, you have a hole in your head. Did you know that? I know it's not very scientific to say you have a hole in your head, but it's true. The brain extends through the bottom of the skull and is protected now inside the bones of the spine by passing through this hole in your head. Now, because it's not very scientific to say you have a hole in your head, science stepped in and gave this a name in Latin to make it scientific. The Latin name is foramen magnum, and that's Latin for large hole. All right? Now, the brain extends through that hole and goes down the full length of the body, and at intervals down, branches pass out. See, if this were a tube of bone the way I've shown it, you'd be protected, but you wouldn't be able to bend or twist or turn. So old Mother Nature said, these people need to bend and twist and turn. Let's cut this tube of bone up into 24 movable segments called vertebrae, the bones of the spine. Now you're flexible. Let me show you a model here. Here's a fiberglass model of a human spine. This sitting on top, and I hope you can see it from where you are, this is the base of the skull. The brain sits in here. If I tilt this forward, can you see there's a large hole in the bottom? And this yellow thing represents the bottom of the brain and the start of your spinal cord. And it runs down inside all of these bones of the spine. And in between each pair of bones, there's an opening through which nerve trunks pass. Now, if all of these bones are where they belong, your nerve system is protected, your brain regulates and controls your body chemistry, and you can adapt to every change in your environment up to your peak capacity. Now, that still doesn't mean you're going to be as good as the next guy, but it does mean you're going to be as good as you can be.